Philip Arthur George, wilt thou have this woman to thy wedded wife, so long as ye both shall live?
I will.
Diana Francis, wilt thou have this man to thy wedded husband, so long as ye both shall live?
I will.
Here is the stuff of which fairy tales are made. The prince and princess on their wedding day. But fairy tales usually end at this point with the simple phrase, they lived happily ever after.
Many firms from developed and developing countries are entering into joint ventures in the form of love marriages. Excited by the liberalization of their economies, they are seeking partners with a view to rapidly enhancing their global image and reputation. However, such marriages are doomed to disaster.
One could be very general in the response and say that the joint ventures are failing because of a mismatch in the expectations.
Today, joint ventures by large foreign multinationals with Indian companies are, whether one likes it or not, elephants marrying fleas.
The main disadvantage, because there are, of a joint venture, it appears when you don't choose properly your partner.
When an alliance fails, it's really essentially a failure of relationship.
With the opening up of the Indian economy, similar to economies of many developing countries, entrepreneurs began to face global competition. To counter this, entrepreneurs have to produce cost-effective quality goods. And in order to do so, they have to upgrade their technology. This alone will help them exploit fresh markets overseas.
A quick and effective way to do this is through joint ventures and alliances. This strategy, though very effective, is also very complex, and hence it is imperative to have a thorough understanding of what it takes to enter into a successful joint venture and alliance.
After liberalization, the major change which has taken place is the mindset we have had. Earlier it was domestic. We felt now there is an opportunity to do business globally.
Let us go back historically to how joint ventures really started in India. In India, really, joint ventures came into existence more out of government regulation, where foreigners, if they wanted access to our markets, because of the restrictive trade policies, and even the restrictive investment policies, but at least they could come in, they had to join hands with a local partner.
Therefore, the first step for the marriage is to need to investigate or research. That is our Japanese Asian common behavior.
And therefore, one starts thinking in terms of competition, one thinks in terms of quality, and technology. And therefore, these are requirements which becomes very necessary on one hand, and on the other hand, access to the markets.
What you will see in this film is what we hope will be an effective plan to develop your joint venture or alliance. While it is okay to fast forward or alter some of the steps in their order, it can be quite fatal if even one of the areas is missed out. It's really quite simple. All you have to do is be systematic and thorough. Though globalization means looking outwards, often this starts with looking inwards, and hence a self-introspection and analysis is our best starting point.
Our analysis commences with the mission statement, which is then translated into objectives and targets. These could cover areas such as market leadership, quality, customer orientation, entrepreneurial management, and global leadership. What is then required is a specific focus
The very fundamental issue in relation to alliances is first to understand why you want it. If you have a technology edge, you create entry barriers.
And as the economy grew and more and more freedom came for foreigners to invest here, we decided to serve this market better by setting up a local joint venture.
If you're going for a joint venture, it's because you want to share the risk or because your expertise is not the one of the partner you're looking for. And the idea of make a joint venture is to find one way that the both part wins by putting together their own expertise. Everybody knows that l'union fait la force, that when you fight something together, you are stronger than when you are alone.
You're looking for access, you're looking for technology, you're looking for some specialized skills which are related to production. There may be some specialized skills related to, if you're looking at biotechnology or semiconductor, there's special reasons why you're looking for access to research and development activities.
The important prerequisite is that there must be a common purpose in setting up the joint venture, or there should be a common agreement if it is going to be an acquisition or a merger. For this, we need to ensure that there is a business fit.
The second reason is really the technological change. And this really flows from globalization, because technological change means that you really need to meet the requirements of the other marketplace. And when I talk about globalization, it means that the international companies will begin to compete in your market, and if you want to survive, then what kind of a competitive edge do you have in that marketplace? And that is when you start looking for an alliance.
I think the joint venture are more and more a necessity because the companies have their own expertise and they are looking abroad for other expertise. This expertise can be money, can be technical knowledge, can be cheap labor, can be access to a market. I mean, there are various ways to get a partner together. But the idea, the advantage of it is that you get stronger. You improve yourself by having a joint venture.
In the General Motors Toyota Alliance, US markets were opened up for Toyota. General Motors also added new products to their range, plus techniques such as total quality management. The Ford-Mazda alliance brought similar benefits to each party, as did the Nissan-Volkswagen tie-up. Inland Steel USA and Nippon Steel Japan are jointly constructing the world's most advanced continuous cold steel mill in the USA. Inland can make use of Nippon's technology, and Nippon gains entry to the US market, overcoming import quotas and supplying Japanese car plants in the USA. Japan's move from being component suppliers to collaborate. Inland Steel USA and Nippon Steel Japan are jointly constructing the world's most advanced continuous cold steel mill in the USA. Inland can make use of Nippon's technology, and Nippon gains entry to the US market, overcoming import quotas and supplying Japanese car plants in the USA. Japan's move from being component suppliers to collaborators in the United Kingdom involved strategic thinking. Sony, Matsushita, and Mitsubishi set up local manufacturing operations in the UK. Naturally, the influx of Japanese brands posed a threat to the European industry. Quick to respond, Japanese companies like Toshiba and Hitachi simply searched for UK partners.
Once the focus is clear, in-depth analysis should be carried out in terms of history and evolution of the organizational values and philosophy of its founders, as well as the changes in management style. The company's financial position and growth, including capital structure, turnover, and profitability. The product mix covering evolution, volumes, contributions, and markets. The manufacturing processes covering machinery, technology, and R&D. our human resources in terms of numbers, growth, skills, training and professionalism. And the competition, including market size, past and present players, and our position.
Having defined our vision and mission and clarified our strategy, we now have a descriptive document of our firm. We use this to carry out a thorough SWOT analysis to get some straight answers to some very important questions.
SWOT analysis is I think, the first fundamental thing that I presume they would have to do, because unless you know what your strengths, weaknesses are, you're really not going to reach a conclusion as to why you need an alliance. And also, if you do the SWOT analysis, it will throw up the areas which are your weak areas, and those are really the ones that you want to strengthen.
One of the areas of opportunities we perceived as we need to strengthen in the areas of technology. And the technology of tomorrow is biotechnology. India, or VOCAR as a matter of fact, are still at a very early stage of learning the whole area of genetic engineering. And therefore, we felt definite need to have a partner who can bring this strength into our plans and into the joint venture.
Opportunity to form joint ventures abroad is shrinking because the markets where Indian companies were setting up ventures, let us say Thailand or Indonesia, or let us say East Africa and Kenya, Tanzania, etc. Those markets are now also attracting the big investing countries such as United States, Japan and Germany. So our ability to continue to exploit those markets have diminished to some extent. So it is more competitive, and our entrepreneurs have to be more alive to the opportunities and the threats in order to exploit them.
A company's SWOT analysis, for instance, could reveal that a firm's strengths lie in its people or its infrastructure. Its weaknesses could be its quality or its money management. Its opportunities could emerge from new products or new markets, and the threats could come from new government legislation or impending competition. However, SWOT is a dynamic process and must be seen from a global perspective, as changes in different parts of the world, such as government legislation or the emergence of trading blocs, can have quite a dramatic impact on a firm's actual position. Having done this, we now move on to the next stage. Having defined our vision and mission, clarified our corporate strategy, developed a descriptive document of our firm, and having done a detailed SWOT analysis, we are now ready to look for the optimal opportunity from a global perspective.
The starting point in finding the optimal opportunity is a global survey of our industrial sector. This has to be followed by a review of the technological levels in the home countries as well as overseas. If we seek an inward joint venture, which would be our best source country? The important question is that if we are not state-of-the-art, then in which country would our level of technological development be relevant? The key issue is there a niche for us?
I think it's necessary for an Indian businessman to know where in the United States they'd like to do business. What part of the country is suitable? If it's marketing, they'd have to know where the market is.
IBM's operations in Japan are successful where it shares distribution units with Raiko and computer-integrated manufacturing with Nippon Telephone. IBM is also active in a tie-up with Fuji Bank for financial systems marketing.
To focus on a country or a set of countries, we need to access secondary sources for country and industry-specific data. These are available from various international funding agencies, foreign missions or trade commissions, and commercial data banks.
After doing some research on what part of the United States is important for a tie-up, what part of the United States an Indian firm would like to do business in, knowing something about the scope of the industries that are in the area that a firm is interested in. Then it would be appropriate to plan a visit to the United States and to talk with businessmen there. Of course, in the United States, American business is unsure about the market in India. So one important thing for an Indian businessman going to the United States on such a trip is to be prepared to give a good briefing to American businessmen about the opportunities in such a tie-up. What kind of firm does the Indian businessman represent? What kind of business is he doing? How secure is his business? What is the nature of his resources that he will bring to such a tie-up? All of that information will be lacking to a potential American business partner and must be presented in a convincing way.
Specifically, we should collect information on development of the economy on a macro level, including major indicators like growth rate, inflation, GNP, GDP, per capita income, etc., as well as the global orientation and trade performance. Government policies and attitudes, particularly with respect to fiscal and monetary policies, socio-political stability, and the overall legal and regulatory environment. Finance, including efficiency and diversity of capital markets, quality of financial services, maturity of financial markets, interest rates, banking infrastructure, etc. Infrastructure, in terms of communication, transportation, especially roads, ports and utilities, particularly power, etc.
At the beginning, we talk also about the laws, the way the companies feel a country. Everybody knows that Indian market has potential. Everybody knows and accepts that to come to Indian market is difficult. And this can explain maybe the speed of development. I mean, let's see how we say in French, par le petit bout de la lucarne. I mean, through the small windows.
We had three different experiences. One dealing with the Europeans and the large companies. We found this as our most pleasant experience because they are seasoned, they understand the dynamics of business, they understand what value they are bringing, what their partners bringing the value. And also I think they have a perception of a much long-term relationship aspect. So that was our more pleasant experience. With the Americans, we found that they are too much transaction. With Americans, what we found, they are too much transaction driven. And they are looking each as a specific transaction and not trying to look at in a much broader and long-term perspective. Secondly, they tend to be far more bureaucratic. They send a lot of junior people who can't take a decision. Then by the time it reaches at the top, and top doesn't have the time to look at all the issues. So that was not a very, very pleasant experience with the Americans we had. But that's not what I'm trying to say, okay, all are like that, but that's our experience. We had a joint venture in the Middle East, for example, and that was entirely a very different kind of experience. There you had to really carry them with you and educate to them okay, what you are doing and what is their strength, and actually we have to highlight why we want them.
One can use simple risk evaluation methods using the following criteria: inflation, interest rate, economic growth, GNP, per capita income, country stability, and business confidence. Using a point rating scheme, one can evaluate relative risks for various countries. This analysis can be supplemented with country competitive analysis. This would cover quality of management, level of science and technology, professional relationships, various people-related parameters, and corporate values and attitudes.
One of the issues that is important is that the top management of both partners, particularly the Indian company, it should not relegate the job of finding an international partner to junior staff. Quite a lot of times that is how it tends to happen. The top management themselves need to get involved in it. There needs to be a lot of homework done into what kind of partner you're looking for. Once your basic objective of why you're looking for alliance is established, you then go and find out where to get it from.
During the course of my long career, I have worked in various capacities, and it has taken me across not only the length and breadth of this country, but also to practically all the continents of the world. Firstly, of course, to make contacts with the principals of Hindustan Lever, that is Unilever Limited, and its subsidiaries, but also to deal with other companies with whom we have got trading contacts, and also to negotiate on joint ventures or technology transfers or buyback arrangements.
If you are already in the business, you would know the kind of alliances around the world that can really benefit you. If you're starting absolutely from scratch, I think that you really need to do a lot of desk research before even moving forward. But I think enough avenues are available to do both.
The solution has to be found out by each country according to its past culture, according to its present social status, according also to the political forces which are at work in each country. Otherwise, it would be too easy. And this, as we say in French, it's éternel recommencement. I mean, you have to find again and again the process, because this is how the society is evolving.
I would say that alliances as a habit is more common amongst European and American companies. Southeast Asian companies, Japanese companies are not very comfortable with alliance relationships. I'm not saying that they are not good partners. Of course they are, and there are always exceptions to the rule. But from my experience, I find Europeans and Americans to be more productive, more long-lasting relationships.
Sony's chairman, Akio Morita, conceived the idea of the Walkman by his desire to listen to music en route to work without disturbing others. The Walkman is popular in America for the opposite reason. It cuts off disturbance from the outside world to the listener. Hierarchical differences can also cause problems. Perceptions of status are often made on the basis of some status symbols. A British general manager in Bangkok preferred to drive a small car, which is more maneuverable in Bangkok's traffic. However, his Thai team found it impossible to agree to his request, because if he drove a small car, they would be obliged to ride bicycles. Hence, he was forced to drive a Mercedes-Benz. In some traditional cultures, when people are asked to deal with someone who is 10 to 20 years younger than them, they feel offended, even though the younger person may be well qualified, competent, and experienced. For instance, the Greek, the Italians, the Japanese, and most Asians would be offended dealing with very young Americans or Europeans. Time is viewed in a variety of ways in different cultures. The Americans, for example, are sequential in their approach, doing only one activity at a time, keeping appointments strictly, scheduling in advance, and not running late. In contrast, the South American or Middle Eastern approach is one where appointment times are approximate. Meetings may start late, and telephone calls and other visitors upset schedules.
When all the facts and figures have come in, the data has been analyzed, and the pointers are in a certain direction, visit the country, live it, feel it, meet the local people, not just people from your own ethnic background, but the real sons of the soil, and get to understand what makes them tick. Once you're satisfied with your personal observation, then go for it. Having honed in on our chosen country, we now need to look at the state of our industry in that country. This would bring us one step closer to who our final partner will be.
Having identified who those shortlisted are, its best thing is to go and visit them, spend a lot of time. There is nothing that a partner you really need to woo.
The key factors for analysis of the industry in the country of our choice are industry, including level of technology and R&D, supporting industries and ancillaries, geographical dispersal within the country, etc. Demand assessment in terms of capacity levels of major players and growth rates, competition levels and threat of new entrants, suppliers and buyers.
Let us recap what we have done so far. We first clearly defined our vision and mission and clarified our corporate strategy. Next, we developed a clear, detailed, descriptive document of our firm and carried out a comprehensive SWOT analysis. Next, we looked at the global perspective of our industry in order to find an optimal global opportunity, and then looked at various geographic possibilities. Next, what we did was look at the optimum industrial opportunity within that selected country and went on to carry out a first-hand review of the country that we had selected. And having selected the country, finally, after being satisfied, having visited there, we decided to go ahead with the next step. In the next part, we will look at what are the various alliance and joint ventures options open to us. We shall then look at fine-tuning our partner search to make sure we really have the right partner. And finally, we shall end up by looking at the pitfalls, stumbling blocks, and problems that have befallen so many joint ventures around the world in order to ensure that ours is a real successful joint venture.